Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In today's video, we'll be discussing the rulings regarding az-zakah and all of the information that's quite necessary for it. Again, as we mentioned with this series, we'll be covering them as a summary. Our aim is that we, inshallah ta'ala, give just a brief overview of each pillar of Islam and then give the general gist of what's going on, and someone can then further on learn about more. But inshallah, hopefully today with zakah we'll be trying to cover the most important parts so that a person can generally know where they should go in which direction. Now, when it comes to az-zakah, we need to first understand what is the meaning of zakah. Zakah in Islam, it's a way of purifying one's wealth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to give zakah once we reach that state or the conditions being met for it. Secondly, zakah also is a way of helping the community of the Muslims. So if a person is able to give zakah, they're able to assist the community of the Muslims, yani the rich, able to help the poor, those that are in need. And this is in general a way of the society helping to remove poverty in totality. And if zakah was to be implemented in its right way, right form, with the correct conditions, yani we're not saying we take part of Islam and leave the rest. We're saying that if Islam was implemented correctly and zakah was also implemented, poverty would not exist. So this is something that we must really love and understand, and really be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His legislation of zakah, as it allows one to understand properly what are the rules regarding it. Now, there are conditions that need to be met for zakah to be given. As we know with all ibadat, that the first condition will be being a Muslim, as we learned with salah. We know that this is a condition. A person was to give zakah yani just because they felt like it or they thought it's important but they were non-Muslims, they wouldn't be considered zakah. So this is not accepted. Secondly, zakah is, I was going to go back to the point of the Muslim. If a person doesn't accept Islam or is not a Muslim, then his action won't be accepted in general. Why? Because one of the conditions that the scholars put is, one of the reasons action to be accepted is ikhlas lillahi ta'ala. Ikhlas means sincerely for Allah. That means with tawheed, you do your actions with pureness for Allah alone. Now, if a person doesn't believe in Allah or regard Allah as his religion as the truth, or the religion that Allah came with as true, or Allah, the one that Allah sent to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if they don't accept this in the first place, then how can that person be worshipping Allah sincerely if they're not accepting his religion? So obviously this is clear that this is a condition. The second condition of the actions is that action be in accordance to what was revealed, and if this person doesn't even acknowledge that, so how is the action going to be accepted? So obviously Islam is more rightful that a person be a Muslim before his action, and accordingly his intention also for Allah. So the first thing is being a Muslim. The second condition is obviously regarding the issue of slavery. Now, in the time of past, before Islam, all nations, you could say, had slavery of some kind. They had it either wrongly or rightfully. The point is that Islam also acknowledged this, yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed laws regarding slaves because it was something that was present at that time. And as Muslims, we don't believe that just because it's present at that time, not today, we reject these rules. We still affirm the rules. And if it was to come back, Islam would have rules for them as well. So we're not here to say that it's been kind of like the rules regarding it don't exist or they shouldn't be, they don't apply. Rather, we accept every rule in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed regarding this issue, it's clear. We don't need to go about it and explain it in details, but all we need to understand is that there was slavery at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it proceeded after him and the generations after him, and all nations at some point in time had, we could say all nations, yes, all nations had some relation to this issue of slavery. It wasn't something that was strange or abnormal. Today, yes, it doesn't exist. So obviously if we hear this word slavery, it's deemed as something criminalistic and wrong. But obviously Islam had rights for slaves. They were given rights, they were respected, treated well, and obviously there was rules regarding them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated to us how to treat them. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is that a person who has to give zakah cannot be a slave. This is the point we're getting to. If a person is not a slave, and they are a free person who's not considered as a slave under Islamic rule, then they are no longer, they are obliged to give, if they meet the requirements, remaining requirements, they have to give zakah. But if they're a slave that is a Muslim and not under is under the rule of someone, thus in this case they do not have to give zakah because their property is not owned by them, it's owned by their owner. Wallahu a'lam. The next issue is concerning al-nisab. Al-nisab is that which is regarded as the point of which a level. So when we discuss zakah in detail, inshallah, we'll learn that there are some levels for each required stage. We're going to go into inshallah in detail. There's a necessary amount that a person must have for that zakah to be given. So if a person has under that amount, they don't have to give zakah. So in reaching the nisab, which is the level of which zakah is binding upon the person, this is what is needed for that condition to be continued. So being a Muslim, being free, and then nisab. Nisab means that the produce or the thing that they have has reached that level, which we will discuss inshallah later on. Thus they have to give zakah upon it. Condition number 4 is that the thing that we are concerned about in zakah is that it's owned by the person. So if we're talking about money here, it has to be his own money. If we're talking about something other category of zakah, then which we will discuss today inshallah, that should be owned by the person, not by somebody else, for it to be binding upon them to give zakah. And finally, the final condition is that it must be a full Islamic year, which is a lunar year according to the moon. As we know, the Islamic calendar runs on a lunar cycle, which means that each month is based upon the 30 days of the moon, or depending on when the moon sighted. Obviously we know that the moon could be 29 month or 30 month. Wallahu alam regarding which it is, because this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we have the mawaqit lin-nas, we have the signs with the times for mankind based upon the lunar calendar. So every Islamic month that precedes, and if that person had that wealth for 12 Islamic months, which is the full Islamic year, and so if, for example, they gain the property on this date and it reaches a year, we're talking about the exact full year Islamically, they must give zakah upon that thing. So whatever it is, we will discuss that inshallah in the next part. So in summary, zakah is binding upon a person on the 5 conditions. Should those 5 conditions be met, then the person has to give zakah, and inshallah we'll discuss how they do it and where they give it and what is done with it. Inshallah, so we're going to go into the categories of zakah. The first category, as the scholars discuss, is the zakat of dhahab al-fidda. Dhahab al-fidda is regarding as the consisting of like gold that is used for trade purposes. Like a person has gold that they, as the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they would trade in gold and silver as a currency. Obviously people also used to have gold as well as a investment, because of like gold bars and gold coins, and all of these things fall into this category. Also alongside that is money, because money today is derived of gold and silver, but mainly gold. So when the scholars discuss the issue of gold and silver, they're referring to money in today's day, like the currencies that we have, as well as this also regarding this is the issue of gold that is stored in the sense of purpose of investment and trade. And in this case, gold and silver, that is for this purpose, that if it reaches 85 grams and is stored for one Islamic year, which is one Islamic lunar cycle year, that money, 85 grams, so in the scholars in general, to be honest, in general, when they consider the issue of gold and silver, which one should be looked at when it comes to considering money, because we said gold and silver, obviously at the time of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was money, and after them was gold and silver. So what about gold and silver today as money, because we don't have it? So what do we do? What do we do to transfer the rate? So a person in general, there's 2 opinions. One opinion says silver, look at the silver is lesser, and some say look at the gold. Regardless any of which one you choose, and we see the stronger opinion seems to be from the scholars to take the rate of gold, because the scholars apply that every single currency today is linked to gold, not silver. They compare the currencies of today are connected with gold, and silver is not concerned. Thus silver is not to be looked at. So based on this premise, scholars say go for gold. If a person wants to go for silver, that's up to them, because it's lesser amount and it's safer. That's up to them also. But we're saying that generally speaking, the scholars mentioned gold. If a person was to go for gold, and we're looking at the price of gold today, if you were to have as and the hadith that mentioned about the nisab, the level. So now we're going to talk about the level of which a person must have for a year for him to have to give 2.5% of his wealth. So we have a person who has 85 grams of gold in wealth. So at the rate today, let's assume that gold is $100 or £100 per gram, $100 per gram. Imagine that's the rate. So we take 85 grams, which becomes $8,500, because we said 100, so we times by 85 becomes now $8,500. This is an assumption, by the way. We're not saying this is the exact price. So please, a disclaimer to those that would take this as the original level. Please don't assume this is real, because check the gold with the price that you are seeing today. It can change. So maybe someone seeing this video in a few years' time, the gold price might be even more, or it might be even less. I don't know. We can't base it on that. So I'm just giving an assumption that gold is 100 per gram. It's not at the moment. I believe it's somewhere else, but anyway, just to give an example for this video, 100 per gram, it's $8,500. So if a person has $8,500 for the whole year, at that point, when he for that measurement of gold, then he must give zakah on it, because he had it for a year. Should that money have fluctuated and gone down below the rate at any point, then he doesn't have to give it. So it has to be for 1 year, complete year, as the scholars mentioned al-hawl. The whole must be for 1 whole year at nisab, the whole year. So whole year. If it stays at that level, 8,500 example that we're giving, then anything above that and anything above, whatever he has, if it's, let's say he has $10,000, $20,000 stored for 1 year, he must give 2.5% in zakah. And we're going to again talk about where he gives it and how he gives it, but we're just saying that 2.5% of zakah must be taken for gold and currencies if we link it to gold. As for silver, it's 595. So we're just going back, it's 200 dirhams in Arabic, which is the equivalent of 595 grams of silver. And again, a person, if they wanted to go on the money rate for that, it's obviously going to be far less. Then they can base off that. If they have silver in their possession as a product of trade and saving for currency reasons, then they must give zakah upon it. Now, the scholars are unanimously agreed, and this is something where there's difference of opinion, but generally speaking, from what it seems to be apparent, is that scholars unanimously agree, if gold and silver are used for purposes of beautification and not for trade, like it's a design on a wall or in a house, to beautify it, or women having gold jewelry because men cannot wear gold, and a man having jewelry, they don't have to give zakah upon this, from what seems to be from the stronger opinions. Wallahu alam. But should a person want to do it, that's up to them. Obviously, ihtiyatan, to be on the safe side, they can. But generally speaking, they don't have to. But if they want to, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be on the safe side, and this is a good thing, inshallah, and they can do that as well. Wallahu alam. This is regarding the subject of zakatul dhahab wal fidda and currencies, so gold and silver and currencies. The second category, so usually this category is at the end, but we're going to do it second, because it links more to it relates more to people in today's time, because the other two categories, maybe they're not as prevalent. But anyway, we'll discuss all the categories, but because there are 4 categories, but we've discussed the first one regarding gold and silver and currencies. The second category is trade assets. So when a person, for example, has a business, let's say they have a business where they trade with, and they have commodities like computers or cars. Now this person here, he or she has a business that they're making products, selling products with. Now in this case, there are 4 conditions when it comes to a business and them giving zakah. The first is the owner owns the property, the first thing that they acquired through a means of purchasing or gifting or obtaining from any means, whatever how they obtained it in a correct manner. The second condition is that the person who has ownership of this commodity or this thing, that they intend it to be used for trade. So should a person obtain something, their niyyah straight away was, for example, I've got 1,000 computers, I'm going to use them for selling, buying and selling. So that automatically, the niyyah is already been made that the person is using this for trade and profit. The second is that the third point obviously is regarding an-nisab. So if a person's commodities in total, we're going to discuss this later on, inshallah, should that commodity reach the state of the nisab, then they have to give zakah upon it. And finally, the fourth condition, which has to be met, so all 4 have to be met, that the produce that they have, or the trade goods that they have to be in possession for a lunar year. So let's go over these in detail. So firstly, let's imagine the first 2 cases are the person owns it and they intended to use it for the purpose of business and selling and buying and selling. So let's say a person has loads of, like a large amount of cars, and they purchase these cars for the intention of selling. Now they have possession of these cars for 1 whole year. They have to estimate the value of these vehicles and compare it to the value of gold or silver. Again, this goes back to if a person feels that they should go on the gold or silver, whatever they feel is safer and closer, they can base it upon that. As we said, currency is based on gold, so a person can go by gold, and if they want to be on the safe side, they can go by silver. So anyway, whatever we mentioned regarding the previous chapter of wealth, currency, this is what the commodity must add up to. So for example, they have 10 cars, each car is valued at 5,000 each, so that's obviously going to be 50,000. The nisab, as we mentioned in the previous chapter, as an example of gold being, imagine it's 8,500, they have $50,000 worth of vehicles. So in this case, they must give zakah 2.5% on the entire 50,000 and give it in zakah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is an example of commodity. It could be computers, it could be iPhones, it could be tablets, it could be anything. It could be food and drink, it could be soft drinks, it could be shoes, it could be clothes, whatever it is, it adds up to the nisab, and they've had it for 1 year, then they must give zakah upon it. Wallahu a'lam. This is the second chapter regarding trade material and trade goods. The next topic in discussion regarding the issue of zakah, the third issue, is grains and produce that is grown from the earth. So grains like barley, wheat, rice, millet, and cereals, these are all stored and weighed. And there are also fruits that are of similar kind. So those type of produce that are grown and stored, those are the ones that we are here in consideration. And when the time for nisab, when the zakah is to be collected, if at that time when zakah is being collected, it has reached the level of nisab, which is approximately 624 kilograms, in that case the person should give zakah upon it. So in this case, if a person's produce reaches 624 kilograms, they are to be giving zakah upon it, on this produce. Now, how do they give zakah? It differs upon the actual it differs on how it was maintained, in the sense of how it was watered. So in the case of, if it was watered by natural rainfall, this is natural irrigation through rainwater, and in this case then 1/10 of this produce to be given to zakah if it reaches al-nisab, which is 624 kilograms in produce and weight. If it reaches, if it's been irrigated by man-made systems, like waters from canals, and that which not from rainfall, like from water from the society provided by the water companies, in this case 1/20 is to be given in zakah, so not less. So it's less. And if it was partially irrigated and partially rainwater and man-made partially, in that case 3/4 of 1/10 is to be given. So in these three cases, it falls under this category. So we're talking about cereals, millets, grains, rice, all those type of things that can be stored and weighed, not those that which are individually, like for example apples are not stored and weighed, they're just sold as seen, as you can say, and there isn't consideration of like how much it weighs in if they're stored. Rather they're sold as like onions, basil, all of these type of things, cucumber, these type of things, they are not kind of stored, you wouldn't be able to store them, so they would be sold as seen, and those will not be falling under this category. In this also comes the subject of rikaz. Rikaz is that which is from the treasures of the earth, that which come out, like jewels and diamonds and rich treasures. So those type of things, if they have been coming out of the ground, in the case of rikaz, if they appear from the ground, then obviously 1/5 is to be given to the Muslim treasury, and actually it goes to the same recipients of al-fay, which is a specific category, and this is, but anyway, the point is given to them. If it's given to them, then it's benefited for, and the remaining 4/5 are given to the owner. So just a summary of rikaz, it's those things that which are taken from the rikaz, those things that are taken from the ground, like treasures, like jewels, diamonds, those type of things. And if they are to be taken from the ground, if a person is obtained them, 4/5 is for him and 1/5 is for the Muslim treasury regarding al-fay. Wallahu a'lam. The final category for az-zakah is regarding animal livestock. In this case we have, inshallah ta'ala, I will be hoping that this is clear for everyone. If you have sheep or goats and you have reached the nisab. The fourth category in concern regarding the issue of az-zakah, which is the final category, is livestock. Now, if animals are stored or livestock is kept for the purpose of grazing on natural lands and for the purpose of producing milk and reproducing to create more, in this case zakah is due upon them if they have been tended for 1 year. Now the case differs per animal. So if it's sheep and goats and they were kept for the purpose of reproduction and milk, then in this case, and the like, obviously those purposes, in that case then they would have to reach the nisab, which is for 1 year, having to be tended for 40 of them. So if you have 40 sheep and goats, in this case zakah is due upon them, and obviously there's a set number, so each time it'll go up. So I'm not going to go into detail on this, it's quite a deep discussion for each animal. For cattle, like cows, in that case, for this case it has to reach the number of 30, and again, the purpose of it for milking and grazing and reproduction and naturally grazing, not being fed any food artificially, rather on the grassland naturally eating. In this case then it has to be 30 as the minimum number for nisab and 1 year. And finally we have camels, which is 5. So if anything is under this number at any time of the year, for whatever purpose, it is less in number, the person is not due to give zakat upon it. And inshallah this summarizes the issue of zakat. Obviously there are more details to the issue of livestock, because the more animals you have, the more there has to be given. In general, I'll give you a quick summary of just the first for each case. So if it's 40 to 120 for sheep and goats, so you give 1 sheep in zakah. If it's 30 to 39 cattle, a young bull or a young cow for 1-year-old should be given. And finally, if it's a camel, 5 to 9 camels in ownership for 1 year, a sheep should be given in zakah. And there's obviously more categories later on, which we inshallah ta'ala will maybe put for you in this inshallah ta'ala and make it clear for you. Hopefully this clears up the issue of zakah, and it makes it clear where zakah, how zakah is to be done for the 4 categories. Just closing on the issue of zakah, we have a few more things to mention. When is zakah to be given? When it's due immediately. So as you know that zakah has reached 1 year, you should then, in the case of the ones where it's 1 year, it should be given immediately and not be withheld. Now the 8 categories of zakah, there are 8 people that should be given. It is the poor and those who cannot meet their basic needs. So if a person cannot meet their basic needs to live in a society they're living, like food, drink, clothing, housing, in that case they are required the zakah. The needy, the second is the needy, those that can meet half of their needs but cannot meet the remaining. In this case they are considered the needy and they should be given zakah. Those that are administered to get the funds and watch over it, so people that are the zakah collectors, the one that manage the zakah, like how they're going around and collect it from people, and the ones that keep it, they don't really like, generally speaking, the people do it from their own will, like they go out and do this as mentioned. But if they are taking a wage, then they are not to receive this. But if they don't receive a wage, then they should be given from the zakah. Number 4 are those that are, when the leaders have non-Muslims that come to them, obviously from the communities, and they want to basically bring them closer to Islam, they can be giving them gifts and hopes to bring them closer and not push them away. So in this case, one can offer them like some sort of like thing to reconcile their heart, and from that zakah can be taken for this. Then there are those who are as slaves, and those slaves who have made agreements with their masters to pay for their freedom. In that case, zakah can be given to them as well. So those slaves that are wishing to become free and have told that they will pay an amount to their owner, zakah can be given to them. So obviously, people prior should be given as well. But obviously, if zakah can meet the needs of everyone prior, then the slave should be aided in getting them out of slavery. The 6th category regarding zakah is the one who is in debt. The religion of Islam looks at the community and looks to help the community. If community is in debt, zakah can be given to them to clear their debts and aid them from any difficulty they are going through. this is mentioned. Number 7 is those who are going in the cause of Allah to fight in jihad fi sabilillah. Again, this is something that Islam looks at, aiding the soldiers and those armies that are going in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and zakah is used for that. And finally, there are those who are the wayfarers, who are on a travel, who are cut off from their homeland and don't have wealth to allow them to reach home. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated zakah be given to them. These are the 8 categories of zakah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this series beneficial for you. I know it was quite a lot to take in, and a lot of details were mentioned. But as we said, these things should be studied in detail, spent time with, understood the rulings and the ahkam about them, and inshallah ta'ala that will make sense for all those that are listening. Wallahu a'lam, sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.